Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live. The DG Murray Trust is calling for a deeper price reduction for a targeted basket of highly nutritious food. This comes as recent data actually shows that stunting has increased from 27% in 2017 to 29% now. The foundation says that these worrying statistics highlight the urgency for government to make protein-rich foods more affordable to the public. Joining me now to elaborate further is the CEO of the DG Murray Trust, Dr. David Harrison. Good evening, Dr. Harrison. Thank you so much for joining us on Prime Live.
Thanks so much for having me.
Dr. Harrison, it's fair to say that the statistics on the stunting seem to be quite alarming, and we have seen a 2% increase in just 8 years. What do you think is happening when it comes to nutrition in South Africa?
Yeah, so the percentage of children that are stunted does vary a little bit from survey to survey. So the 2% increase may not be that significant, but what is significant is that we're not making a difference. We're not making a dent. So all of the studies are showing that more than a quarter of our children are nutritionally stunted. And I mean, that is profound. It means that over the last 20 years, even though we've managed to perhaps bring more energy into the house, more starches into the house, what's missing is the type of food that enables the body to grow and enables the brain to grow, and that is protein. And what nutritional stunting is that children are short for age, they don't grow normally, what it really is an outward manifestation of what's going on in the brain. And you can't see what's going on in the brain. But if we know that children are short for age, they're also going to be intellectually stunted. And that's hugely damaging to our society.
Absolutely, and it's really devastating to be able to understand that all South Africans don't have equal access when it comes to accessing healthy and nutritious food. And I'm certain that if the prices were right, every parent in South Africa would be buying this healthy food for their families and feeding their children healthy food that is rich in protein. But could you also tell us more about the civil society-led initiative for the double discounting a basket with 10 nutritious foods? What could be included on that grocery list?
Yes, so this is something that we've been pushing for about the last 18 months. And it's saying that what we have to do is particularly target discounting towards those foods that are staples for poorer population. So we're talking about things like speckled beans. We're talking about amasi, tinned pilchards. Also, some of the products that wealthier people do eat, but are so vital for brain development, like eggs. So eggs are on the list. So we've identified 10 products that represent the best buys for poorer families to be able to get the right protein-rich food into their children.
I think it is a really important and a very noble initiative to get this conversation started so that we can allow South Africans, particularly our disadvantaged communities, the ability and the access to be able to feed their families healthy and nutritious food. When it comes to VAT exemptions, could you please explain the difference between a VAT exemption and directing money to low-income households via expenditure side interventions?
Yes, so what VAT-exempt foods are foods that when you go to the till, you don't get charged that tax, that value-added tax on those goods. So government has identified, I think it's 21 foods that are VAT-exempt. We don't pay tax on many of the foods that I've described. We don't pay tax on eggs. We don't pay tax on milk, for example. So that's important because it means that the prices are kept a little bit lower, although we're not sure how much lower because the retailer may still be pricing the goods as if in fact there were VATs levied on that product. So that's VAT exemption. But what we're talking about here is to go beyond that. We're saying it's not good enough to discount by 15%. I mean, if families are going to get this protein, we've got to be discounting by 40, 45, 50%. That's where we need to get to. And what what the proposal does that's on the table is to say, okay, if government were to put up a retail subsidy, were to provide a subsidy for those 10 best buys, and if industry were to waive the profits on just one food label, just one no-name brand of those 10 best buys, you could reduce that food by the 15% VAT exemption that's already in place by another 25 to 30%. That's the deep discounting that is needed, as you say, that is needed for families to be able to shift from carbohydrate-rich foods to protein-rich foods. And parents will make that shift if, in fact, it's affordable to them.
What I also want to talk about this evening is the 5 billion rand regarding the government's direct investment in nutrition with far-reaching benefits. But why is there a reluctance worldwide in order to do this?
Yeah, so I mean, we've estimated that this proposal that we've described, this double discounting, would cost about 5 billion rand. Now, the interesting thing is that the government of national unity has said that they want to find a way to protect a basket of goods, to make a basket of nutritious goods available. So the GNU has stated that. And the GNU has gone further. The president has said, we want to exempt more products. Now, VAT exempt more products. We're saying that's not the way to do it. Because what happens is if you exempt more and more products, because the richer people can afford to buy those goods, they will end up benefiting more than the poor. So that for us is why we're saying it's so critical to focus on deep discounting, and that will cost about 5 billion rand. Now, you raise a very interesting and important point. Why is nutrition not on everybody's agenda? It should be stop the press. Our children need food more than anything else in the country. I mean, it should be that obvious to everybody. Now, there are some countries in Latin America, particularly, where the president doesn't get elected if the president is not serious about issues of nutrition and food. And so we've seen how food and nutrition has become a major political issue in those countries. But interestingly, and I was speaking to somebody in South Africa who was saying, often people are a bit embarrassed to say they don't have enough food. It's like hunger and lack of food is something that happens in the home, and it's not seen as government's responsibility, it's a family responsibility. We've got to break out of that. The causes of malnutrition in this country are structural, they're systemic, and we can't simply rely on families. We can't say it's your problem to afford food. We've got to find ways as government, working with industry, to ensure that the system changes to increase affordability of foods.
Absolutely. I think you raised a very important point there, is that when it comes to the malnutrition issues in South Africa, when it comes to the issues of hunger in South Africa, they are generational, and they have come from years and years of oppression on these families who have, ended up in this vicious cycle of poverty. And I think it's incredibly important what you alluded to now, as well as earlier, how important it is to make sure that the children of South Africa are well nourished and well fed in order for them to have the best possible future. But we often hear about people actually asking whether ideas such as the one we have discussed are actually sustainable. Would you argue that such investment is money well spent?
Well, the World Bank says that for every rand that you invest in nutrition for your children, you get at least 10 rand back. I mean, so it's a huge investment, because if children are stunted, then they can't learn properly at school. If they can't learn properly at school, they're not really employable. They drop out of school, and that damages the economic prospects of the country. So our country is losing at least 1% GDP growth every single year because we have such a high stunting rate. So the only way that we can break the cycle that we're speaking about, the only way that we can get out of this, is if we start to invest in the right places. And what's more fundamental and what's a better investment than ensuring that all of our children in South Africa have nutritious food?
Absolutely. That was very powerfully said. Dr. Harrison, thank you so much for joining us this evening, as well as sharing your insight with us as well.
My pleasure.
Viewers at home, that was Dr. Harrison talking about the importance of nutrition in South Africa and the importance of governments allowing for an opportunity for all communities across the country to have access to healthy and nutritious food, and that it has a direct impact, yes, on our country's GDP, but it is important for our country, for our government to reinvest back into its people. There are generational cycles of poverty that exist within communities of South Africa, and without access to nutrition and without equal access, we cannot move forward. But on that note, viewers at home, it is time for us to head over to an ad break, and we'll come right back.